Namaste. Very good morning and a warm welcome to everyone. And thanks everyone for tuning in. And thank you, Brother Sathesh, for joining us. So I think we can just dive into the topic. But before that, just one thing to share. If you guys have any questions and while the session is going on, feel free to put it in the chat box. Based on the time we have and the relevance, we will pick it up. All right, so let's start off, Brother Sathesh. So when I heard this topic, mirror, mirror, honestly, the first thing I was thinking about, okay, what are we going to discuss about? Because it is such an abstract topic and one can perceive it in different ways. So why not we start with that? What was on your mind when you came up with this topic?
Hi, Varun, and hello, everyone. Firstly, thank you for having me in this very interesting session. I feel really pleased to be invited and to be able to share my experiences with you all. So yes, Varun, it is indeed quite an abstract title, but it actually came about one day when it suddenly dawned onto me because, the mirror actually plays such an important part in our lives. And we don't really pay that much attention to it. We get up in the morning, we go to the bathroom, we brush our teeth, we do what we need to do. We need to comb our hair. That's the most important thing. And you need the mirror for that. You don't need the mirror to brush your teeth. But if you want to check something, you need to look at the mirror. Anyway, it's so subconscious these days. We don't really pay much attention to it. So, it's there all the time, doesn't say anything, doesn't do anything. Anyway, what I noticed was, one day I got up, I saw the mirror and I thought, oh yeah, it's good. And I was just heading to work. And because I used to work in the city, most buildings are always, glass. And, you see cars that are parked there. And everywhere there is some kind of a reflective glass. I noticed not just I was looking at the mirror, but people also were looking at the mirror, the glass, the reflection basically. And I just started becoming more observant. I thought, this is interesting. What are we always looking at? When I look at the mirror, I am looking at my physical. So it's not just me, but I've also been observing in other people. Either we want to adjust our hair, or if there is a pimple on our face, or if there's a mark, somebody tells you there's a mark on your face, you want to deal with that. Some people, if it's a full-size reflective glass, they want to adjust their clothes, just make sure everything looks good. And I just realized, I thought, gosh, we do so much to keep the people around us happy, And then I thought to myself, not only do we do our best to look good physically, we also like to do things at a very physical level, So say, for example, Varun, you've done extremely well, with, introducing the topic and starting off. And so I come up to you and say, Varun, you did really well at the interview or at the start of the interview. I think it's amazing what you've done. So I'm there to say sweet things to you. And all the time I'm saying something really lovely to somebody else, to someone new I meet. I go and say good morning to somebody. And if, of course, the opposite also happens, right? We don't hesitate to say something horrible to someone who's done something horrible to us. And I thought to myself, great, we are appreciating what's out there, who's out there. So I might appreciate nature, I might appreciate the beauty of something, but at which point in time am I putting a pause and saying, I want to look at myself and appreciate myself? I said to myself, we've got 24 hours in a day. How many seconds am I actually sitting back to appreciate myself? And that really got me thinking. And I thought, it would be a very interesting topic to explore together. And so that's how this whole thing on mirror, mirror came along.
All right. So when you mentioned, right, you sit back and kind of appreciate yourself. Many times we find ourselves lost in the stories, like whatever we see out there in the physical world, and that somehow is what we consume, and then our mind kind of revolves around those things which we see, creating some kind of a story around it, and then we kind of get trapped by it. We kind of get swept away by it, and that kind of affects our feelings, our emotions. So how do we kind of take that step back that you just referred to? How do we kind of detach ourselves from what's happening out there, and so that we can go to actually see what's happening in there?
That's a very good question. And I think that's the plan, to explore it as we go further. From my perspective, I think the first thing I need to do is to actually make time for myself. The second thing I need to do is I need to really recognize, or to be able to see myself. I feel the rule of thumb in life is to firstly accept that I am a human being, right? Mm-hmm. And that is the absolute essence, because the human is what I see in the physical mirror, in my bathroom, in my room. But the being part, that's the one that's actually managing, that's the one that's actually driving me, that's the one that's actually helping me with the kind of thoughts I create. And that's what we're actually working on. And that's what the whole mirror reflection is all about. It's great to see my physical. Yes, I'm not saying I don't need to look decent physically, because what's inside is definitely going to be reflected outside, right?
Yeah.
So, if I'm really confused and totally lost inside, you can tell straight away just looking at my face. And so it is important to look decent, but at the same time, I need to work on that inner self of mine. The next thing I need to do is my thoughts. My thoughts are the seed of everything. So we are seeing everything out there. Am I giving permission to everything that's out there to take charge of me, of my life, of my thoughts? Do I actually recognize my qualities, my identity, my real identity? It's one thing to say, yes, I'm an IT professional. Yes, I've got a very senior position in the company. Yes, I work for a big company. Yes, I collect a big paycheck and come home. I live in a very grand suburb. Great. Right? But that's all at a very physical level. Because that's there today, that can go away tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But what is my real identity? I need to recognize that. And for that, like I said, the first thing I need to do is I need to take some time out. I have to make that time for myself. And like I said, once I can accept that I'm a human being, let's work on this being. Nobody talks about the being. And it is that being that reveals my true identity, of my real qualities of love, peace, happiness, joy, power, whatever it is, you name it. All that positive qualities is really me. And when I start dwelling on those, then I can actually bring them out. I actually live them. I make them a part of my life. That becomes my shield. That becomes my protection from absorbing all the stuff that's happening outside.
Okay. So whatever happens out there in the physical world, we all have a different way to perceive it, what's happening. So what shapes this perception, and how can we refine it to work it for us and not against us? Because many times we kind of become our own enemies, just by the way we are perceiving things. So
it's a very good question. In meditation, in Raja Yoga meditation, one of the things that we talk about is, yes, create thoughts. We're not saying don't create thoughts, right? But the next thing I also need to do is I need to manage them, right? And one of the key things that we are really good at is this thing called overthinking, you know? So it's very much what you said, Varun. You know, today I might get up and I'll say, you know, I think what I want to do is I want to go to work. I want to tell my boss, I want to work on this big project. You know, you've got this fantastic idea and you know it's going to work and you know it's going to be brilliant. It'll bring the company lots of money and you think, yes, this is what I want to do. So what you're doing is you're already starting to think. You're thinking about it. And as you start heading to work, you start growing the idea. But by the time you reach the office and you see your colleagues, you look at your boss and you think, actually, maybe it's too big. I don't think I can manage this. I don't think I can do this. You know? And so what happens is I start overthinking. And when I overthink something, then I'm actually becoming like what you said, you know, I become my own enemy. And so in meditation, what I do is I manage my thoughts. And in that process of managing my thoughts, I create my thoughts, right? I actually become aware of it, I experience it, and I allow it to be a part of me. So for example, the first thing I do is, you know, I see myself as a being of peace, for example, or a being of love, for example, and I start dwelling on that. When I say dwell, I start giving it some life, I give it some shape, I give it some color, you know, so I'm starting to give it some energy. Okay. And when I do that, I start to experience it. When I get that experience, then I start to live those qualities. Now, what that's actually doing to me is it is actually helping me to connect with my real truth. When I connect with my real truth, I know what I am capable of, and I know what I'm able to achieve. You know, so there's not that concept of overthinking anymore, because then I start training my mind to be a lot more disciplined. I start training my mind to see my real potential. So it's not just about my positive qualities. The whole idea of me connecting to my positive qualities is for me to be able to live them. But along with that, I also know what I can, what I can't do. So then I stop this whole pattern of overthinking. So I start seeing things from a very different lens. I start seeing things from a very optimistic, very practical lens. Does that answer the question?
It does. But then that also brings up one question. So at times, even though when we know this and we have been practicing this, but at times the intensity of the situation kind of overpowers, and then there's a huge momentum of thoughts, and then it's difficult at that point to put a brake on it or to change its course until its job is done. It's like it's come for a purpose. It goes on, and there is a point when it cools down and then it's gone. Yeah. So, but till that point or till that period, let's say it's half an hour, 15 minutes, 1 hour, depending on the person and the situation, there is a lot of suffering created already. There is a lot of perhaps karma created already. There is drainage of a lot of energy already. So to avoid that time gap, you know, so that all these things could be avoided. So how do we train ourselves so that we do not waste this much energy and kind of manage it when it happens?
I can so relate to that situation, and that's a fantastic question. To be completely honest with you, I feel it will take a lot of practice. You know, I mean, we've been talking about meditation, we've been talking about, you know, connecting with my real self or the higher self, or Atma or the soul, as you call it, whatever name you give it. But I really feel, meditation is something, like I said, because it's a tool to help me discipline my mind, I feel it is something that goes with a lot of practice. And, my favorite example is, when you go to the gym, for example, right? Initially, some exercises can be a bit difficult. You might find, oh, it's too difficult, too heavy to lift a dumbbell or something. But as you keep going, you develop the strength for it. And I feel in a situation like this, it is the same thing. What I need to do is, don't just try to do meditation when the situation is there. Meditation is, I always tell people, meditation is not the destination. Meditation is just a tool. And it is a tool that if it's used wisely, it will bring a lot of benefit to me. So what I need to do is to use that tool on a regular basis. I think it's just the nature of life, right? Practice makes perfect. So from the day we're born, we go to school, we have to practice our maths. We have to practice questions for exams. You start, if you want to pick up arts, if you want to be a musician, you have to practice. Anything for that matter, whether you want to do cooking, you want to be a good cook, you need to practice. And so we don't have a choice, unfortunately. We just need to practice. And the more I practice, the more I start to see the benefits of it. Until and unless it is present in my life, I will not see the benefits of it. It's very easy to talk about it. It's like history. You can talk about it, but if you don't understand it, if you don't experience it, there is no power in it. The other example I tell people is like, when you hold a mango in front of somebody, even though the skin is green, you show somebody, hey, would you like to have this mango? Now, they haven't even felt the mango, but they just look at it and then they think, oh, it's green in color and I don't want to have it. It's going to be awful. It's going to be sour. But, this is that species of mango that is green even when it's ripe. So you got to touch it to know when it's ripe, right? Now, once you've got that mango, that person from afar will say, oh, no, it's not nice. I don't like it. But when you cut it and you eat it, only then you can actually experience the sweetness of it. Only when you eat it, you'll know whether it's sweet or sour, right? From afar, you can't really tell. Because some fruits, they look so good in color, but when you put it in your mouth, it tastes like water. Yeah, that's right. Some are even sour. So in the same way, I really need to practice. That will give me that mental strength. And, like I said to you earlier, how this whole concept of understanding myself as this being, this spirit, this soul, this Atma, is very important, because it is from there that I actually manage my thoughts. Now, it is there that I actually need to discipline my mind. So what's actually helping me to discipline my mind? My truth. Okay, so in Raja Yoga meditation, we use this term, the intellect. But that intellect is also my own truth. That is what tells me what's right and what's wrong. And it is the role of the mind to keep thinking, to keep creating thoughts. And it's pretty unfortunate, but we live in a world of a lot of imagination. In India, in Indian mythology, you've got the story of Ram and Sita, right? And Ramayana.
Yeah.
And the whole story of Ramayana is just based on this. It's based on just imagination. Right? And because of this imagination, there was a whole big scene that was created. And this is exactly what you told me, right? You've got so much of thoughts, and suddenly in my mind, it feels so real. So I need to act on it. And the worst part is, sometimes if it stays in your mind, yes, it's a waste of energy, but it hasn't burned any bridges. It hasn't ruined any relationships. It hasn't spoiled any situation. But if I bring it into action, then I have to work twice as hard or even 3 times as hard to repair that whole situation. So what meditation actually does is it gives me the opportunity to take a step back, especially when my mind goes in overdrive. Then I have this understanding that, all right, stop for one moment, let's take a step back. You know, I will never connect with my truth when I'm emotionally active. And we all know that. You never make a decision when you're emotionally upset. You never make a decision when you're emotionally, you know, like you're very hyper, you're very excited about something. You never make a decision at that point, because your chances are you're going to make a wrong decision there. And we all know that that's a fact, right? So it's very important that I take a step back. When I take a step back, so in meditation, what I do is, this is my practice when I get into overdrive. I say, let's reverse a little bit and let's do a little bit of meditation. Let me see myself as this being of energy. Let me see myself as a being of light. Let me see myself as a being of peace. So I start my meditation practice. Now, what this does to me, it helps me to calm my mind down first. Once I calm my mind down, then I revisit that whole train of thoughts again and ask myself one question. Is this an assumption or is this the truth? If it is the truth, let's deal with it. What do I need to do now to move forward? But if it's just an assumption, let go. You know, it's going to be hard to let go initially, you know, because it will keep coming back. And I have to say, one good thing about coming to Australia is, or even with Australians here is, you know, people generally ask quite directly, you know, and my practice has been to try and get it as diplomatically as possible across. So you ask them politely, and usually they will tell you. And most of the time, people, I think we don't have a choice, if I was to be honest with you. I think we don't have a choice but to take their answers as the truth, because they will have to honor what they have said, whatever they have promised. So I really feel this whole practice of meditation will actually help me to slow down my thoughts and then act on that situation. That will really help me to save a lot of energy.
That's right. So from what you shared, a couple of questions on that. One would be that it seems that the intellect plays quite a role here. So the first question is that how can one strengthen the intellect? What can we do in our day-to-day life that kind of, you know, strengthen this particular aspect in us?
Okay. So this is going to take me into a little bit of a journey into this soul itself. It might be a bit of a different concept for some of you. It might be a known concept, but I hope you'll just see it with an open mind and let's go from there. So in my experience, the soul, even though it's just energy, and I think we don't really have a problem accepting that that's the higher self that we talk about, that's the spirit that we talk about, that's the Atma that we talk about, just to recognize that it's not something I can see, touch, and feel, right? So it is something intangible. And this energy, even though it's not something you can see, touch, and feel, but just like our human system, you know, you've got different organs that need to work together. Like, you know, you got your heart, your lungs, your abdomen, and all that stuff. You need them to work together. In the soul, it's got 3 main faculties that need to work together. So it's got the mind, which creates the thoughts. It's got the intellect, which we spoke about, which is my real truth. And the third thing is my sanskar, or my subconscious mind. Okay, so at the beginning, I mentioned that I need to connect with my real, true identity. Now, that real, true identity is buried deep inside my subconscious or my sanskar, right? So as soon as I create one thought, if I tell you, Varun, I really see you as a really loving, caring person.
Mm-hmm.
And for that one split second, you might think, oh, thank you. And then what's the next thought? Oh, he's got to be joking. You have a good laugh at it. Where did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where my subconscious will feed my mind and tell me the story. Come on, Varun, who are you kidding? Yeah, Sathesh doesn't know you. He's only met you a few minutes ago. But you remember, you shouted at your mother 2 days ago.
Yeah.
You were quite harsh in your language. And you called it loving and caring. Now that's coming from my subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's sort of my memory track, it's sort of saving everything that is happening in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not my real identity. All that stuff, that negative things that we've picked up in life,
Mm-hmm.
it's not my real identity. Like I said to you, at my very core, at my very deep subconscious lies my true beauty. And that's what I want to bring out. And so what I'm doing through meditation is I feed my mind with one thought.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then my subconscious might start debating it. But here, this is where my truth will come back to me. My intellect will tell me, yes, you may have shouted at your mother 2 days ago, but look back, you did it for a good reason. Your mother was going to fall, hurt herself, injure herself. Isn't that part of your loving, caring self? So you start digging deeper into my real truth,
Mm-hmm.
and then I start to connect with that love and care comes responsibility. So where is that coming from? It's coming from deep in my subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
My subconscious is bringing out. And then you start finding a lot of these qualities coming out. And that's how I actually strengthen my intellect. What that means is through meditation, I'm actually strengthening my intellect. I'm giving my mind a chance to speak. I'm giving my subconscious a chance to speak, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm allowing my truth to come out, reconnect and re-emerge that real you. This habit of shouting, screaming, showing off, trying to be possessive and controlling, it's not your natural, true nature. It is something that we have learned and picked up from our surroundings. But your true nature is that of being loving and caring, because every human being, no matter how mean, how cruel that person might be, deep inside there is deep, deep beauty in each person. I usually give this example to people. Whenever a baby is born, the baby never calls for attention, but everybody wants to go to the baby. Everybody wants to cuddle the baby. Everybody wants to push the pram. Everybody wants to play the baby, tickle the baby. Why? Baby never called for any attention.
Yeah.
But it's that purity of that baby that's actually drawn you to that person, right? To that baby. And so that clearly proves that every individual that comes onto this planet actually comes with all these positive qualities. We are natural human beings with good qualities. Everything else is picked up as the children are growing up.
Right. Right. So from based on what you shared, this seems like some practice. But what I've seen around is that even in me and people around me who have started on this journey, because there's a certain expectation out of yourself that there has to be virtue exercised, and you have it, but when the situation comes up, you don't exercise it somehow, and then that is followed up with guilt because there was an expectation I had from myself. we do understand it needs work and time, but how should we deal with this when, in case we don't step up or really act as we should have? So let's say a situation has come, which has already happened in the past. We did think about it. We realized that this was somewhere we went wrong, and we at least consciously think we will not do it again. But then when this happens and we somehow do it again, and then this is followed by guilt, which again does more harm. So how do we deal with that?
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
That's normal, right?
Yeah.
So I always feel, yes, we might be doing our regular practice. For example, you might say, all right, let's get on to it. Every day I'm going to spend maybe 10, 15 minutes with meditation, because Sathesh said meditation works. So let's try it. So you start and then you say, yes, it'll work. And then, like what Varun said, suddenly you feel like, you have this whole gush of thoughts, and then you're driven to do that wrong action. And then there's a sense of guilt. It's like, people who are trying to get out of smoking and drinking and drug, alcohol, like any kind of addiction, right? Any kind of addiction. I think it's very important, firstly, to realize or to understand that, we're not dealing with machines here. You and I are human beings. These habits are deep, but they're not so deep, right? So in the process of fixing them, I need to give myself time. It took 9 months for the baby to come out. And it took, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years for us to sit together like this on a Zoom call, right? Even when you throw a mango seed into the ground, you don't get the tree tomorrow morning, and you don't get your fruits next week. Everything takes time. The law of nature is things will take time. So I need to be kind to myself. So say, for example, let's say drug or alcohol addiction, for example, if I have been, or even smoking tobacco, if I've been a chain smoker for, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 years, then rather than having maybe, 6 or 7 of, cigarettes or alcohol in a day, I have not had it for the last 4 days, and then suddenly I have it once. Now, give yourself a good pat on the back. You've done well. Look at the bright side. And I feel it'll get to a point where you will have to push yourself a bit more. And the moment you cross that line, you have become victorious on your habit. This word habit is very interesting. I think some of you may have heard it, but I hope you don't mind me sharing again. The word habit, if you remove the alphabet H, what do you have?
Habit. A bit.
A bit. If you remove the word, you remove alphabet A, what do you have?
Be it.
Bit, B-I-T, bit, right? Which means there's still a little bit.
Yeah.
So if you remove the alphabet B, what's left?
It.
So it takes a while to get this word, to get a habit out of your system, right? So you take H, a bit is still left. You take A out, bit still left. You take B out, it is still there. So you got to give it some time. We're dealing with subconscious, you're dealing with personalities. And, I feel the only reason we get into addictions is because there is something lacking inside of me, not outside. I know so many people who are in addiction who are actually coming from really good homes. But when there is something lacking inside, that's when I go outside looking for stuff, for any kind of solution, right? And so what I need to do is start working, but don't give up. Start working. And then, yes, it's one thing to have my meditation practice, but the next step is I need to also make some practical plans for myself. So say, for example, actually any kind of addiction usually works in a certain circle of friends. you know.
Mhm.
And the moment you tell your friends, look, I'm done with drinking, I'm done with smoking, I'm done with drugs, or I'm done with, anything else, you will find that they will take a distance, a step away from you. And I have to be ready to accept that as reality. And I have to move on with a new circle of friends. Unfortunately, this is life. We tend to move together with things that are common with each other. But I have to be bold if I want to see that change in myself. If I want quality of my life, I have to make some bold decisions. So it is important to have meditation because that gives my intellect strength to resist the temptation. But I also need to make some practical steps so that I don't keep going back into such a company that's going to spoil my head again. Because once I'm completely out of that habit, so once I've got back to my normal routine, everything is going well, then after a while, if you want to go and meet your friends, you can. But at that point, nothing's going to pull you because you've already got into a normal routine. You're done with the addiction side of things. And this doesn't just relate to physical addictions that we've just talked about. It could be even personality. Some people have this personality of getting snapped very easily. So someone says something, you immediately react and you get upset and you get agitated. It could be something like that. It could be just a habit of just showing off. I got something, I got to tell the whole world, hey, I've got a new Parker pen. I want you to know I've got this Parker pen. I spent $200 on a Parker pen. You just got to tell the whole world 20 times at least to anyone you meet. So it's just a habit, and I just need to learn to have my own internal satisfaction, and that will come through meditation, because meditation is going to fulfill the needs of my soul. What I have out there, what my wallet can offer me, is just satisfaction at a very physical level.
Right. Okay, brother. So maybe can we spend a few minutes maybe doing that inner reflection? We can also understand how do we go about this?
Absolutely. The way I like to share with people is to actually, first thing I always tell people is sit comfortably. I know the traditional conventional way of doing meditation is to sit cross-legged. You got to be on the floor and all that. I think times have changed, and so you're welcome to sit comfortably, but not too comfortable before you fall asleep. So just be comfortable. You can sit on a couch, you can sit in an office chair, it doesn't matter. Not lying down ideally, because that's not going to help you. The next thing I need to do is keep my eyes open. So in Raja Yoga meditation, we definitely encourage you to keep your eyes open, because when you keep your eyes open, excuse me, when you keep your eyes open, you are actually able to retain that experience a lot longer. So definitely keep your eyes open. Now, when you keep your eyes open, the biggest challenge is with every little bit of sound, your eyes are going to go here, there, and everywhere. Excuse me. I know some people have suggested that, we can focus on a candle. And I say, yeah, that's fantastic. It's an excellent idea. But the problem with the candle is it tends to keep dancing every so often, if there's wind or it needs to move. So I generally just like to encourage people to have a point of focus. It doesn't matter what, where, but just somewhere where you can just rest your eyes on. And like I said, definitely keep it open, but don't stare at it. Just be natural, exactly like what you're doing now, where you've got your eyes open, you're blinking as you're listening. When you watch the television, when you're in school, you never close your eyes to listen to your teacher's teaching. You never close your eyes to watch a movie. But at the end of the lesson or at the end of the movie, you can repeat everything very clearly. So too, with meditation, keep your eyes open, be very natural. Raja Yoga meditation is all about being natural. So I just need to rest my eyes on a point of focus. And then the next thing is when we start. I start with just observing the screen of my mind. right? Just observe the screen of my mind. This is an excellent picture. Thank you for sharing. You're welcome to rest your eyes on this image that's in front of you. You can use the point of focus right in the middle. And just observe your thoughts. We're not commenting, we're not criticizing, we're not complimenting any thoughts that's running through my mind. I'll just give it a few seconds. I see my thoughts flowing. And now I feed one thought into my mind. I am a benefactor. Someone who wants to bring benefit to everyone. I just watch this thought on the screen of my mind. Again, I don't criticize it. I don't comment on it. I don't need to analyze it. I just watch it. I am a benefactor. One who brings benefit to everyone, not just in my words, but in my thoughts and in my actions. Who is this I? I, the soul, the being, the higher self, the Atma. What is benefit to the world? My pure, my loving, my peaceful vibrations. What does this loving vibration look like to me? Let's give it a shape. Let's give it a color. Let me just soak in the experience. What does it feel like? Is it soft? Is it smooth? Just allow those feelings to just soak in. Absorb those feelings. And let me spread those beautiful, loving feelings all through my body. Let me just pass it down from my head to my neck, all the way down into every organ, every cell, right down to my toes. I let these feelings not just stop there. I allow these feelings to just emit out of me. Let this energy flow as far and as wide as possible. Let me be like a radiant light. When you feel ready, just gradually become aware of your surroundings again. Become aware of the sounds. And just become aware of this body of mine. I move my toes gently and my fingers. Thank you.
Great. So thank you so much, brother, for the beautiful meditation.
So much.
And also for the sharings we did. So that's the one thing I would say that if I could summarize it in a couple of statements, it's like we kind of meditate on a daily basis and try to strengthen the intellect. Basically, meditation will strengthen the intellect and it will allow us to discern between the truth from the untruth. So whatever that is going out there or whatever is happening in here, so this intellect will kind of help us to discern what is really me and what is not me.
Totally.
And just like anything else, it needs practice. So we may make mistakes. So it's just about getting back up, just like we did with any other habit. And we just keep on moving forward, learning from our experiences. So
brilliant.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Summarized it really well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I have to say, yes, you've done really well.
Thank you. It was a pleasure having you. Yeah, thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for tuning in.